Hello and welcome back to the channel if you're returning. Hi, if you're new, my name is Ricky Fraley and I upload true crime content on a weekly basis, usually every Saturday at noon. About 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video on the case of a young woman that went missing by the name of Kayla Berg. That was a case that happened in Canada, I believe, in 2016, if I remember correctly. And as part of gathering information on that case, I was using a website called the Charley Project. The Charley Project is an online publicity vehicle and public archive information on active and cold case missing persons files. It's actually a really big help, and they've got all sorts of different cases and stuff. So if you like to visit that website, go ahead and check the description. There's a link for it, or you can just go to the Charley Project. I believe it's .org. It's either .org or .com. It'll be down there in the description, but go ahead, take a look. There's all sorts. I think they have a spotlight, a case spotlight, so they'll have like different cases every day you can learn about, read about, and who knows, the more people that are looking at the pictures of the people that went missing, the more eyes we got looking for people who vanished. But while I was doing research for the Kayla Berg case, I on the sidebar, when you're looking at one case, on the sidebar there's other cases that you may be interested in as well. And one name that popped up on there that I recognized, but I couldn't remember where I recognized it from, popped up, and that name was Kayla Berg. The case details didn't seem all that familiar to me, but the name, like I said, it stood out in my mind as I was going through, and the more I thought about it, I was like, man, I have to go back and look into that case. Well, I did, and it didn't take very long for me to figure out why I recognized that case. And you, as I say the name Kayla Berg, may also recognize that case but not know where you know it from. But as I go through this case, you might realize where you know it from, actually. So, let's start off where Kayla started off. Kayla was born on August 29th, 1993 in a town in Wisconsin called Antigo. Her and her brother grew up there together with their parents. However, their mother and father did split up while the children were young, and as such, he lived separately from the kids and their mother. Their father did end up developing cancer, and as such, the kids were allowed to see him on the weekends. Seeing the state of her father inspired Kayla to want to help people as much as possible, and she ended up never turning down a friend that she found to be in need. Kayla also, throughout her childhood, developed a love for gymnastics. She was a talented tumbler, according to reports. As such, she ended up being a strong member of her school's gymnastics team by the time she got into high school. So, fast forwarding to 2007, Kayla's friend Megan introduced her to the partying scene in the nearby town of Wausau, Wisconsin. The girls often spent their weekends partying there, and they would lie to their parents because there was plenty of underage drinking and a ton of a lack of parental oversight. And so, they'd sneak over there, party, and get drunk and all that stuff as teenagers, which they were hiding that from their parents. Don't do that. If you're a teenager, please don't do that. That's not good. As a sophomore, that's grade 10 here in the United States, 10th grade, Kayla began dating a man. He was defined legally as a man as he was over the age of 18. He was 4 years older than her. Her mother didn't really approve of her dating someone that much older than her, though, and she told her to break it off. She asked her to end it with him. Just after Kayla finished her sophomore year, so that same year, and her brother graduated as he was older than her, her mother decided to move to Texas. She ended up taking Kayla, but she left her brother since he was already done with school and he was 18 anyways, so she didn't really want to bother him to move down to Texas with them, so he stayed in Wisconsin while they moved. This move to Texas for Kayla and her mother, whose name is Hope, by the way, was short-lived. After a few weeks, when Kayla's mother realized that it was a lot harder to get a job down there than she had initially thought, and after hearing Kayla's displeasure with her new school's lack of a gymnastics team, Hope decided to move them both back to Wisconsin. But the quick manner in which all of this happened, she couldn't find a place for both of them, so she sent Kayla to live with her father and grandparents, and she lived with a friend until she could find an apartment for both of them. However, 1 week after they returned to Antigua, Kayla told her mom that she was going to be spending a night at one of her friends' houses. This friend's name was Natasha. So Kayla and Natasha never actually ended up staying at Natasha's house. Instead, they decided to go party in Wausau. The next morning, Natasha's mother contacted Kayla's mother, Hope, as neither of the girls had returned by then, and as worry grew within both of the mothers, they decided to go to the police station. While they were there, however, before they were able to file a report, they received a call from the girls saying that they were okay and that they had spent the night at an outdoor party. Hope was relieved that her daughter was okay, but was legitimately, and rightfully so, furious at her and made her promise that she wouldn't go to Wausau to party anymore. So now moving into what actually happened and the events surrounding the actual disappearance. On August 11th of 2009, Kayla would inform her mother that she was going to go spend the day with that same friend, Natasha. They would go to a park and spend time at Natasha's home until Natasha had to go to work at 5 p.m. Kayla ultimately would stay at Natasha's house because Natasha's brother and another friend by the name of Kevin were there as well, so she was going to hang out with them. Kayla would make plans to hang out with Kevin later that night. After Kayla got back to her dad's house for a little bit, she was there for a little while, she called Kevin shortly before 9 p.m. I think it was like 8:45-ish. She called him so that he would come pick her up so that they could hang out as they had planned to earlier in the day. When he arrived, Kayla would say goodbye to her father, and this was the last time that she was officially seen alive by anybody other than Kevin. The next morning, Kayla's father called Kevin upon realizing that Kayla had not returned home, but he was told that Kevin dropped her off at another friend's home after they hung out for a little bit. The next day, when there was still no word from Kayla, her father contacted her mother, who reached out to all of her friends in turn. One friend by the name of Beth told her that Kayla visited her at work at McDonald's on the night of the 11th with Kevin. So that night that she went to go hang out with Kevin, they had visited Beth at her workplace at McDonald's. At that meeting at her workplace, Kayla did tell her that she was going to call her later, but she never ended up calling her. Hope, Kayla's mother, contacted Kevin directly after this. At this point, it had been around 5 days since Kayla had been seen last, and Kevin said that he dropped her off at her boyfriend Miguel's house. This is the same boyfriend that Hope didn't approve of, the one that was 4 years older than Kayla. Upon contacting him, however, he said that he hadn't seen her that night. He hadn't seen her at all on the 11th. That was what he was telling Hope. Following this, the next day, so 6 days after last contact with Kayla, a missing persons report was filed with the police. At this time, however, it was filed away by the police department as a runaway case, not a missing persons case. Well, I guess a runaway case is a missing persons case, but I guess a voluntary one instead of an involuntary one. That's how they categorized it. When the police got involved, Kevin would direct them to a house in Wausau that he had dropped Kayla off at. Kayla's friends, however, told the authorities that Miguel hadn't lived at that house for more than a year. In fact, the house that Kevin had directed them to was condemned at this point. Miguel didn't live there anymore, it was condemned, he had moved. When they got in contact with Miguel, he also told police that he hadn't seen Kayla that night, just like he told Hope, but he did allow them to search his new residence where he lived now, at the time, and they also searched the condemned building, but nothing of note was found. There was no evidence that Kayla had been at either site recently. Throughout all of the police's searches, nothing of note was found. Kevin, however, was arrested and charged for reckless endangerment of a minor for picking her up, and while they were hanging out, driving around, they were smoking a little bit of that devil's lettuce. They charged him with reckless endangerment of a minor for picking up this 15-year-old girl and introducing her to, well, I doubt he introduced her to it, but in the presence of her was smoking on that devil's lettuce, so That's what they arrested him for and charged him with, but ultimately those charges were dropped in the end. So he didn't he didn't serve any time for anything. Those charges were dropped. Nobody has seen Kayla since the night of the 11th when she said goodbye to her father. And no evidence of note has been found to link anyone to Kayla or even shed light on where Kayla's whereabouts might be. There are some details that I skipped over, like the fact that they put both Kevin and Miguel's cars in lineups and had dogs in lineups with a bunch of other cars. They were just mixed in there. And dogs, I believe it was cadaver dogs, would go down the line smelling all the cars. And on 2 separate occasions, cadaver dogs hit on Kevin's car, but ultimately when they looked into it, the police at least say that there was nothing of note there. So it's just, I mean, there was small little things like that made Kevin look really guilty, but as of right now, there's no evidence strong enough to charge him, so he is a free man, just like Miguel and everybody else. We just don't know what happened to Kayla. She just disappeared. Now, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I knew this case from somewhere, but I couldn't remember where exactly. And upon looking further into this case, I immediately recognized why. So on October 8th, 2016, a YouTube video ended up being sent to the Antigua Police Department. The video was originally posted back in 2009, only about 2 months after Kayla actually disappeared, but was only recently rediscovered as of 2016. As of October 8th, 2016, when it was sent back in. Now, I watch a lot of YouTube. I assume you do too if you're watching me. And I've actually seen this video, and that's where I learned of the case from, because I assume back in 2016 I saw it, and then I saw it again like a year or two ago. It just cropped back up. This is the infamous "Hi Walter, it's Patrick" video. It shows what appears to be a deranged man talking about a girl that's his new girlfriend, before cutting to a girl that appears to be tied up in the back room of a basement.
Hi, Walter. I was at the mall today, and guess what happened? I met the most wonderful girl. We went shopping at JCPenney's, and she tried on a lot of clothes. And she ended up buying a whole lot of them, you know what I mean? And then we decided to go and take a look at some of the jewelry at K Jewelers, and she picked out this most awesome necklace, the most amazing necklace I've ever seen. And I know she wanted me to buy it for her because she kept on looking at me and kept on giving me that look. You know the look. And then we got kind of tired of the mall, and I brought her back to my place. And I know she hates cameras, Walter, but I'm going to show you her anyways. You ready?
People in 2016 thought that the girl both looked and sounded like Kayla, and obviously the video was uploaded only 2 months after she disappeared, so that, you know, people kind of jumped on the video and sent it to the police. There was a massive community outcry, and people were holding it up as, you know, possible evidence. They wanted to track down who Patrick was, or potentially who Walter was, and try to find out where the video was filmed. The people behind the video were eventually identified, and they were determined to be actors. People all over the internet called them sick and disgusting for uploading a video like that, but the police did actually release a statement saying that the video was actually in no way related to the Kayla Berg case. So while it wasn't a real video depicting a real person with someone tied up in their basement, it also wasn't a hoax meant to play off of the Kayla Berg case. It was unrelated. It just happened to be a coincidence that she looked like Kayla, and that it was posted so close to the time that she disappeared. Up on the screen now, I should have an age-progressed photo of Kayla to show what she may look like today, even though this photo itself is even a few years old itself. I just wanted to put that up there in case anybody sees someone out there looking like this. Just keep your eyes peeled. Kayla was never found. No body was found either, so we can't say that she perished. So there's still a very strong possibility that she's out there somewhere, and that there could be a positive end to this case. At any rate, this is still an open case, so if you do have any information, like if the age progressed photo looks familiar to you, if you think you have any information at all that may be helpful in finding Kayla, please do not hesitate to contact the Antigua Police Department in order to submit a tip. I'm talking about real tips here. I know that there are some weirdos out there on the internet that like to submit fake tips, and I guess they just want to be involved, but that's just not the way to go. So I would recommend not reaching out to them if you're just going to waste their time and resources. They do have other cases that they got to take care of, but obviously I refuse to let someone who went missing fade from our memory, because you're never really gone until you're forgotten. So that's why I believe it's so important to keep the victims of these crimes and these weird happenings and disappearances in our collective conscience, because they're never gone until we forget them. So if you have any information, reach out to Antigua Police. If not, just leave it alone. I'm sure they have enough on their plate. But I'd also like to say thank you for watching if you did make it this far. And thank you to my patrons for supporting my work thus far. I do hope to see you all again next Saturday for another case, maybe a longer one, hopefully. Please do stay safe. I love you all, and goodbye.